What's happening, everybody? On today's show, takeaways from SEC Day 1 at SEC Media Days. We're going to recap what Greg Sankey had to say. We'll also get to some keys from LSU, Texas A&M, and Missouri on Day 1. And also, we'll have some interviews, catching up with LSU head coach Brian Kelly and Mizzou defensive lineman Darius Robinson. Locked On SEC starts right now.
You are Locked On SEC, your daily podcast on the Southeastern Conference. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's happening, everybody? Welcome into Locked On SEC. It's great to have you guys along. Thanks for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. We're free and available wherever you get your podcasts and on YouTube. Part of the Locked On podcast covering your team every day. All right, got plenty to jump into. Day 1 takeaways, so let's dive into it. We start with Commissioner Greg Sankey. He was at the podium first on Monday, and he touched on a number of different topics, including the idea that NIL is still a topic here across the conference. And here's a few of the takeaways of what the commissioner had to say. He said, look, NIL is not taking away from student athletes, but there have been issues with empty commitments, NIL agreements that were fulfilled on the other end or not fulfilled on the other end. He said our student athletes deserve better than a patchwork of state laws allowing NIL. He went on to say student athletes have asked for help from the SEC regarding NIL, and so this is going to be a topic that's not going away anytime soon. So going to be very interesting to follow that one. Again, the commissioner hitting on some of the biggest topics across the conference. They did also announce that SEC Media Days will be moving to Dallas next year. It'll be held July 15th through the 18th in Dallas at the Omni Hotel, the first year of Texas and Oklahoma joining the SEC, so that is big. He also touched on the idea that we're going to miss Coach Mike Leach. He said he is not going to be forgotten, as Greg Sankey honored him on Monday with no tie. He wore a suit with no tie in honor of head coach Mike Leach. Lastly, Sankey was asked about future realignment and movement. He said, look, we are a super conference. I'm focused on growth to 16. It's not been a topic for the Southeastern Conference. Do I think it's done? People say I get to decide that. We know who we are. We are comfortable with who we are. So kind of an interesting one there when it comes to Greg Sankey. Other topics of the day, LSU head coach Brian Kelly, who we'll talk with in a few minutes, he hit on a few things. He said an area of concern was having to keep dipping into the transfer portal for defensive backs. But he said with some guys coming back, they are very high on, but that is obviously one of the areas they focused on. He said they need to get off the field on third downs this year. He said they were not great on that last year. He did praise Jayden Daniels and his improvement this offseason, said he got better as the season went along, and reiterated, Jayden Daniels is our starter. He will start, but he has to continue to progress because Garrett Nussmeier wants that job too, and he will keep pushing him. Also, he brought up defensive lineman Mason Smith being back on the defensive line is big. He said when he gets singular matchups, he becomes a huge presence for us. And one more note on Brian Kelly, he was asked about closing that gap with Georgia in terms of being, the best team in the SEC. He said, based on how we continue to recruit, we know we will have a roster that could compete versus Georgia, but we have to keep consistently building the roster that way. Switching over to A&M, Jimbo Fisher, of course, one of the big topics of the offseason is him kind of, quote-unquote, giving up play-calling duties, bringing in a new OC in Bobby Petrino. And on Monday, he faced several questions on that. He was asked, does Bobby Petrino have total freedom on game days? Jimbo kind of sidestepped it and said, there's a lot of things that are involved in what goes on. I'm not going to get into what we're doing, how we're doing it. I'm not trying to avoid anything. I just don't want to create the narrative out there for what goes on. He said Bobby was hired for a reason. He's a tremendous coach and a tremendous guy, tremendous football mind, tremendous recruiter. He's done a great job recruiting since he has been here, everything he does. Fisher went on to say, it's going to be a collaborative effort. He said, hopefully, Bobby will call the game. We'll have suggestions on things to do, whether it's offensively or defensively. Every coach is always involved. It's more collective than people want to give it room for. And then when you get to call in, you get on a roll, you get guys that can do it. And I believe Bobby can definitely do that, does it as well as anybody in college football. Have great respect for him. So again, this is going to be one of those topics that's not going to go away anytime soon, and it will certainly carry into the season. Lastly, over at Missouri, Eli Drinkwitz took the podium in Nashville on Monday, and quarterback was a topic for him. He stated Monday that the battle for QB1 could extend beyond preseason camp, but he alluded to the possibility that Brady Cook, Jake Garcia, and Sam Horn could all play in Week 1 and Week 2, playing South Dakota and MTSU. He also said that Brady Cook will be QB1 to at least start camp. And, of course, Brady Cook started all 13 games for Missouri last year, so obviously makes him the favorite. But Sam Horn will be an interesting one to watch. He was a 4-star quarterback in the class of 2022, also plays baseball. And Eli Drinkwitz said that was a confidence booster for him, kind of playing multiple sports. He said that Horn's flashes of success on the pitching mound helped him work on his diet, sleep better, prepare for practices, and that sort of thing. Horn, of course, redshirted last season as Brady Cook was the primary quarterback. So all things to keep an eye on there moving forward for Mizzou. But look, they're not alone. There's a lot of around the SEC. There was a lot of conversation when it comes to quarterbacks, and it's something that's not going to be going away anytime soon. A lot of teams are trying to either figure out who their quarterback is or bring back their starter from last year and feel good about who that guy is. So we will continue to keep you up to date there. All right, coming up next, thank you guys for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, we're going to talk with LSU head coach Brian Kelly. That is coming your way in just a second. But first, I want to remind you guys that this episode is presented to you by our friends over at FanDuel. That's right. Take your first swing at betting MLB on FanDuel, and you can get 10 times your first bet amount in bonus bets up to $200. That's right. Bet just $20, and you'll land $200 in bonus bets, win or lose. That's $200 you could spend on betting everything from the money line to the over-under to who you think is going to hit the first home run. Look, they're giving away free money here. You need to go jump on it. Our friends at FanDuel are doing it again. It's all in an app that is safe, secure, and super easy to use. And plus, when you win, you get paid instantly. You don't have to wait around. It's not one of those things where they tell you, wait a week. We'll see if the money shows up in your account. There's no better place to bet on the Major League Baseball than FanDuel. They are America's #1 sports book. And if you go sign up today, visit FanDuel.com/LockedOn. That is going to get you that $200 in bonus bets. That's FanDuel.com/LockedOn. FanDuel, the official partner of Major League Baseball. Go check them out today. All right, continue on here on Locked On SEC, and before we, as we jump back into it, we were able to sit down with LSU head coach Brian Kelly for a couple of minutes earlier today. Here was some of that conversation with Coach Kelly. Always a pleasure to catch up with the LSU head coach, Brian Kelly. Year 2 in the SEC now. You're the old pro at this now. You're not the new guy on the block.
Yeah, I was trying to find my way around here last year at this time, Chris. But, I mean, it's exciting, right? We're back at football, and being in the SEC, it's a challenge, each and every week, it. But our kids are excited about it. Obviously we had Jayden Daniels here. Obviously Mekhi Wingo, one of our defensive linemen. It just, for us, it just feels like we've got a better sense of, what we need to do to be consistent, and that's a great thing.
I know, look, when LSU's been successful, they've been running back by committee. I know you've got some really good running backs. You mentioned Josh Williams. He's a Houston kid, former walk-on.
Love Josh.
And you go and get a kid. I'm an Archbishop Rummel Raider. You go get a fellow guy in Logan Diggs.
Yeah.
When LSU's successful in pounding the rock, it's everybody's bringing something to the table, right?
No doubt. And it starts with that offensive line where we started 2 freshmen last year. And now, we bring back a veteran offensive line in the sense that they've played together. And that physicality with depth at the running back position is how we want this offense to run. We found the tight end situation now that's a whole lot clearer. When we sat down and talked last year, I didn't know who the starting 5 offensive linemen were going to be. I didn't know who the tight end was going to be. We knew we had some running backs, but now we're in a different place with depth at quarterback. Obviously, the running back situation, which we talked about, and then O-line is going to be a strength for us as well.
Have you ever had a turnaround that quick where you go from O-line is looking like a weakness to a year later it's a huge strength?
No, because we had 2 freshmen play for us, and I've never had 2 true freshmen play and play at a high level.
Right.
So that infusion of talent immediately turned this thing around so quickly. Usually, you got to wait another year before you see that, but it happened quicker because of the 2 true freshmen.
You said it today, Jayden Daniels is your starting quarterback. Obviously, he brings a lot to the table. We've heard about his improvement. Garrett Nussmeier, obviously, in the few opportunities he's had, he's shown bright. How do you balance both? How do you play Garrett and keep Jayden as the starter?
Well, I think you keep competition alive. As I said, Jayden's got to keep improving. He's got to have a great camp, because if he doesn't, Nussmeier could beat him out. So I think you just keep that option open that you're the number 1, but you got a guy that is as good and can be the starter here as well. So you just keep that competition open, and you never say never. And I think that's been a healthy environment. I think both have prospered from it, and both actually have gotten better because of it.
You've obviously recruited well. You continue to recruit well. 2024 is building. You've also managed the transfer portal very well. Is your roster, you got to build this thing. Rome wasn't built in a day, but is your roster where you'd like it to be, or does it still have room to get where you want it to be?
Oh, it has room. I think when you take 16 and the transfer portal is probably a little too many for me. I'd like to say that should be closer to 8 in the transfer portal, where you're taking positions and topping the tank off, so to speak. I think we're a little heavy on defense because we had holes that were recognizable. So I think we're a year away. I think next year you'll see a less number and more in the freshman class.
What surprised you most when we talk about lessons learned? What surprised you most in year 1 in the SEC?
How difficult it is on the road.
I mean, you knew it was tough, but it was even tougher, maybe tougher than you imagined.
Yeah, I think when you go into those environments and they're still full, and they don't leave, and their team is 500 or less, you go, "What? This is different. This is a crazy environment." So I just think being on the road and winning on the road in the SEC is as difficult as any environment that I've gone into. And so you expect, they're SEC teams, but you don't expect them to be, that difficult to play when they're not having great seasons.
You opened the season with a familiar opponent, Florida State, a team you saw a year ago. Unfortunately, Coach, I know you know this, they bring a lot back. Mm-hmm. And unfortunately, it's going to be a tough test. But even last year, when you guys were, you beat Alabama and the season's winding down, your name was still getting thrown around. Hey, if LSU can win this thing out, they can get in the playoff.
Sure.
So it's a big game, but even still, even if you lose, your season's not dead.
No, we're not even looking at it that way as much as we're looking at, we've used this as a great motivation for our off-season training and conditioning, because we know how good of a football team they are.
Right.
So there's great respect in Florida State. The rest of it is about us. It's how we prepare and it's how we play. We're so much different as a football team as we were than last year. We put the ball on the ground so many times. Jayden Daniels was his first time as a quarterback. This will be a different version of LSU, and I know they're better too. So that's going to be the case, but we're excited about the matchup. We don't look at, what if this happens or that happens. We're much more excited about the opportunity of playing a really good football team.
Okay, forget football a second. I heard you just got back from Europe.
I did.
We did Scotland and Ireland 10 days.
Great. Where'd you go in Scotland?
We did Edinburgh.
Beautiful.
We did, where else did we go? We went all over. Scotland. We went up to the Highlands.
Beautiful.
Saw those weird-looking cows they have, all that.
Yep.
And then, of course, we did Ireland, Cliffs of Moher, all that kind of stuff.
Perfect.
There's Notre Dame stuff everywhere, by the way.
Everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Where
were you?
Crazy. So we were up in Inverness, just north. We were members at a place called the Carnegie Club, Skibo Castle, which is up by the Dornoch Firth. So it's northern Scotland.
Okay.
Then we were in Amsterdam for a few days, and then we finished at Lake Como in Italy.
Oh, nice.
So It's great because nobody knows Coach Kelly.
Yeah,
so
exactly.
It's nice to get away with the wife, and my daughter was studying in Europe, so we got a chance to pick her up and have a nice. It was about a week, so it was nice.
We went up to Loch Ness. We didn't see Nessie though.
No,
so I was looking.
Didn't expect that. Nor were you going to see Bigfoot if you went up north here either.
He is Coach Brian Kelly, not a believer in Bigfoot or Nessie. Best of luck, Coach. A fantastic year one, and best of luck moving forward.
Thank you. Good to have me on. Appreciate it.
Head Coach Brian Kelly there. That again, LSU head coach Brian Kelly. Thank you guys so much for making Locked On SEC your first listen every day. Coming up next, Missouri defensive lineman Darius Robinson will stop by. We'll get some thoughts on the Missouri Tigers coming up in just a sec. All right, rolling along here on Locked On SEC, and earlier today we were able to catch up with Darius Robinson, Missouri defensive lineman, get his thoughts on the season. So here was our conversation with senior defensive lineman Darius Robinson of Mizzou. Rolling along here from SEC Media Days, and always fun to catch up with the Missouri Tiger. And this one, a senior defensive lineman. Does it feel like you're going into your senior year already?
Yeah, no, not yet, but it's here. It feels like I was just here my freshman year a few days ago, but time is flying, and I'm just grateful and thankful to be here.
We're talking to Darius Robinson, of course, and big force on that defensive line. And it felt like, man, last year there was that stretch where the defense really stepped up. There was some ups and downs of the season, but there was a stretch of the schedule where it felt like defense really stepped up and started to make some big plays. Did it feel that way to you?
Yeah, I definitely feel like our defense, we was just getting better each and every game, and we just wanted to work hard and be the reason why our team wins games. And I think we're going to have a good job doing that this upcoming season, just working hard and just being the backbone for our team.
The Georgia loss was a tough one. I mean, in hindsight, it's interesting to look back on it and go, you guys gave them one of their best games of the season last year. It sticks in your craw, I'm sure, but also maybe motivates you to go, man, we were that close, right?
Yeah, it kind of bothers me talking about it because we know what should have happened that day and we just didn't get it done. But like you said, it's motivation for the following year and understanding like when we put everything together and everybody's all committed for one goal, anything can be done. And I think that's the big thing this offseason, just working on team cohesion so that when we get the big moments, it's time to execute.
What was a big takeaway from the spring? What did you see out of this defense? Was there a guy or two that jumped out that really made an impact to you?
Yeah, I'll definitely say Johnny Walker. He's a DM for us. He's going to have a huge year for us. He works really hard, and he's been in our system for a while, and it's finally his turn. And another guy that stands out to me on our defense was Tristan Newsom. He's a transfer from, I can't tell you what JUCO he's from, but he had a great spring, getting a lot of takeaways for us, and he's going to have a big role for us one day.
It's interesting. You give 3.5 sacks last year, but, sacks don't tell the whole story, right? I mean, that's the misconception when it comes to defensive linemen. You just want to be a disruptor, right?
Right. Yeah, I've never been about stats because if you always check the draft and you'll see guys with a lot of sacks, you see guys with no sacks, but as long as you're productive and helping your team win, that's the only thing that matters. So every day on tape, I'm just trying to be disruptive and show my effort, and the stats will take care of itself.
Some interesting things with the offense. Obviously, Brady was a little banged up, having surgery and all that throughout the spring. So what wrinkles did you see out of the offense, and how much were you all able to do offensively without him?
I think we were able to do a lot. I think in spring we've seen a lot of different looks from a defense standpoint that we didn't see the year before, but obviously we have a new offensive coordinator. And I think the offense was just really, everybody was focused on individual player development. So I would say our O-line definitely got a lot better. We all did, and I just love competing against them. Javon's here, and, we have our battles every day, and that's just always about competition.
I was going to ask you about Javon, arguably one of the best offensive linemen, not just in the SEC, but in the country.
Yeah.
How tough is that going up against him?
Yeah, it's tough because he's going to go. He's going to give you all he got every day. He's very physical. He knows how to play with your body position, all those different things. And I'm just glad I get to go against him every day.
When we look at the schedule, obviously, you always kind of look at it and say, all right, well, this is going to be a tough game. This is going to be a tough game. I mean, it is a game-by-game, week-by-week thing, but can you kind of look at it as a whole and say, all right, that's going to be a tough stretch. We're going to have to be conditioned and ready to go for that stretch, or is it really week-by-week?
Just week-by-week. Like right now, we focus on South Dakota. We're in the SEC and have SEC games in the future, but you can't get too far ahead in the season, that's when you get beat. So just focus on the opponent week by week and make sure we're all healthy and consistent and just getting better.
What do you like most about Coach Drinkwitz? Because I know he's a guy, he can get fiery at times. He looks very chill in front of the microphone, but I know he can get fiery behind the scenes sometimes.
I just like he's just very realistic with us, and he has very realistic conversations, and it's not a demeaning way. He wants to coach us and get better, and I just like his attitude towards our program, and he works really hard, and he leads by example.
You obviously ended outside the bowl game, the end in the season, beating Arkansas.
Yeah.
That's become a real rivalry game, and you want to beat those guys. So at least there were some big positives last year that you guys checked the box for.
Yeah, most definitely. Arkansas is our rival. Any chance we can beat them, we're going to take advantage of that. And, this year, it's going to be a new year, new challenge, new opportunity. So just working hard to put ourselves in the best position to win.
Who gave you the hardest effort last year, offensive line wise, like that you went up against, and after you were like, damn, that was tough?
Hardest online.
Doesn't have to be a specific guy, but just kind of,
I'm trying to think. I know I'm missing somebody.
Okay. That's all right if you can't come up with one. Just kind of looking back on it.
It's the SEC. Everybody's talented.
It's
every
each
team,
week, right?
Every team has draft picks. Everybody has this. Everybody has that. So I can't necessarily say a pin on one, but the SEC is biggest, strongest, fastest. You'll see it every week.
Yeah. What excites you most about the upcoming season? I mean, obviously it's your last year.
Yeah.
I don't want to say prove it year, but your year to go show everything that you can do. But what excites you most about the season?
My team. I think our team is at a place where we're tired of being in the middle of the pack, and I think we're ready to make that next step. And I think we're just ready to go win games. I'm not going to tell you how many are those things, but we're ready to work hard and do whatever it takes to win. And I just want to enjoy that for my last year.
What's the fan support been like? Obviously, that stadium can get pretty loud at times. What's it been like to kind of have that fan support and get to play for the Mizzou fans?
Oh, I love the fans at Faroe Field. They're very exciting, very entertaining, and when we see them in public, they're just like family to us. So they treat us well, they take care of us, and I just love playing in front of the fans at Faroe Field.
Yeah, it's going to be a lot of fun to see you guys this year. Let me ask you this. When Darius Robinson is not playing football, what do you do in your spare time?
Honestly, I like to read a lot. I like to watch a lot of shows. And I also go to church, just get my mind right, meditate, and understand it's life bigger than football. So just give myself just clarity in life.
You should watch TV, movies, Netflix.
I like Netflix movies. Right now I'm watching Quarterback on Netflix.
How is
that show is so good because it really shows you the athlete's perspective of what's it like day in the life, what's the games like, what's the moments like. That's definitely a great show right now.
And then you can kind of circle those guys and go, that's who I want to be sacking in a couple of years.
Yeah, honestly, if God gives me the chance, I will do it.
Darius, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it, and best of luck this season.
All right, thank you so much.
Thanks, man. All right, our thanks again to Darius Robinson. That is going to do it for this edition of Locked On SEC. Thank you guys so much for making us your first listen every day. Shout out to our everydayers. Tomorrow on the show, we'll bring you a couple more interviews from day one, as well as get into previewing day two. All that right here on Locked On SEC. Make sure you guys are subscribed and checking us out. I'm Chris Gordy. This has been Locked On SEC. We'll talk to you guys tomorrow.